خب من میخوام امروز یه چند تا کار ابداعی که با ستار کردم به شما نشون بدم. از تغییر کوک شروع شد و بعد تبدیل شد به تغییر سیم ها. شاید براتون جالب باشه. اول از همه این ستار من ستار امیر ابراهیمی هستش و این ستار خود بلند بود و چون ستاره من طولاش خود با هم فرق داشت و این مخصوصا بلند بود و انگشتگیری رو یه خود خراب میکرد. یعنی شما یه ستار به یه ستاره دیگه که میرفتین انگشت رو اشتباه میذاشتیم و من اومدم یه پرده اینجا اضافه کردم که کوتاهش کنم و به همون طول استاندارد 66 سانت برسونمش. یه چیز دیگه که بعد شما داشته باشین یه تونرهای وایبریشنال هستش. این تونرها رو این سنارک برند خیلی خوبیه، حدود $10 میتونین تو ایبی بگیرین. خوبی این تونرها اینه که وایبریشنال، با لرزش دسته شما کلیپش میکنین و هر چقدر سر و صدا باشه تو اتاق یا دیگران دارن ساز کوک میکنن اهمیتی نداره، چون از طریق لرزش توی چوب داره فرکانس رو میسنجه. البته اپلیکیشن هایی هم هست روی تلفن های آیفون و سلولار فون های اندروید. یک اپی که من دانلود کردم به نام داتونر DATUNER هستش که خیلی خوبه و یک روی اینترنت هم اگه تلفن ندارین یا نمیخواین دستگاه بخرین یه وبسایتی هستش به نام seventhstring.com و اونجا تونر دارن. It's an online tuner on seventhstring.com. Okay, so the first setar that I'm going to show you is by Amir Ibrahimi, and I think someone told me the template is a large sound box that's patterned after what Kamalian used to make. So anyways, the tuning that I came up with, it's a long story how I came up with this tuning. It's if assuming the open string, the first open string is C, and then here you go to A koron, the second string, and then F. But because my second string would break if I tuned it really to A koron, I kept it at G. I kept the second string at G, and I tuned up these guys differently. So and my third string up here, I tuned it to the bottom one. Now, so the interval, basically, if you think of 3 sets of strings, top one being double, the interval between the 3, each set is a kind of a broken third. It's not a major third. It's not. It's a 1 3/4 tones really. 1 3/4 tone between these two, and 1 3/4 tone between those two. So you have like an arpeggio actually, just like. So what you have, if you hold any point, and so forth, and you can do harmonic. Okay, I have broken my nail, so I'm going to be using a guitar pick. I had to, you can buy these, it was a little bit too curved. I had to bend it up to make it a little bit more straight. It was a little bit too curvy, and I pushed it all the way down so it's just barely over. It's a little bit too narrow. I would like it to be wider, but it's okay for now. So I want to show you how you play on this thing. The interesting thing is that all strings sound pretty good on the setar. But what's also interesting is that you can go across strings very easily. Look at this. Tuner's on, turn it up, and so forth. And take a look here. And then you can continue. Now my drone string, the third one at the top, the third string, I tuned it to the bottom one, but I could have tuned it to match the top guy too. But either way, it's a matter of choice, matter of taste. So let's see. Now I had to temper my quarter tones, usually at 340 cents. I moved them up just a little bit, like a millimeter or such, to make them 350 cents. Otherwise, the frequencies, the pitches won't add up to a perfect fourth and perfect fifth. So when I put my finger down here, it should add up. So I had to temper my intervals a little bit, just very tiny. Let's take a look here. So yeah, so basically the three sets of strings are 1 and 3/4. Now I think of 1 and 3/4 tone as a very important interval in Persian, probably Middle Eastern music, because I think not only like right on this scale is basically whole tone, 3/4 tone, whole tone, 3/4 tone, whole tone, 3/4 tone. So every triad, if you wanted to do harmony on it, functional harmony, it would be all 1 and 3/4 tone, be identical, except for one exception here, because at some point you reach 3/4 tone, 3/4 tone, you run out of your octave. So that's the one interesting thing. But of course, you know, you have the So you basically have a bunch of thirds, and that interval is interesting because you can take your scale and you can transpose it by 1 and 3/4 tone, just like both in Persian and European Western music, you transpose the scale by an interval 5th or 4th. You can in Persian music you do that, but you can also, I think, you can open up new pathways by transposing your scale to an interval of 1 and 3/4 tone. Now, I was going to show you one more scale, which is kind of an old version of a Homogenous. Now I can do it. Anytime you make a mistake, instead of thinking you made a mistake and you went into the wrong mode, you should think of it as actually a possible passage. So you can confuse here homogenous with segah. So I made a passage from homogenous to segah. Now, you can play segah in one key, but you can also play it, I think I found a total of 3 or 4 different keys you could play it. You could play it. But you can also play it in this key. You can make mistakes and go from actually come up with nice transitions from one chord to another. Now, I took that idea and I continued it. I thought instead of having 3 sets of strings that are tuned that way, can we try to have 4 sets of strings? So I took my drone string, which is the 3rd one, and I replaced it with a bass string that is halfway between my G string and my C string at the top. The diameter of these, thickness of these strings usually is 20, which I think is 20/100th of a millimeter, which is about 0.07 inches actually. That's 7 usually diameter that you pick for these strings. 7, and then, or in millimeters it would be 20, 25, and 40. And people change that a little bit according to taste. So I've changed this one. This is 20. This one's still 25. This 3rd one I made it into a 30. So usually it's identical to the first one. So I just took it out and made it into a 30.30 millimeters. And the top one is the 0.40. So it's 20, 25, 30, 40. So actually this kind of, so I have an extra bass string here, and it creates more of a continuous transition from a thin string to a thick string. Usually on a standard setar, when you go from the top strings to the bottom ones, there's a huge jump. These two are close together, the bottom two, but then there's a huge jump to the thick one at the top. So actually when you try to finger, it just doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound continuous as you go across. So here the tuning is, and then you go to, and then you go to F. So I have 4 sets of strings that are all 1 3/4 tone apart. Now my nut here is cut in such a way that I can't move that string down. I would like to have these strings equal distance, but I can't on this setar. And the other setar I can, but only on one of my setars I can. So this may not be a good it may not make for a good example because these 2 top strings are a little bit too close to each other. It sounds okay if you go up and down one string. also go up and down across the string. Even down here. And because the thickness is more is changing gradually, I can actually tilt my bridge over there, so I would have a compensation for the different thicknesses. Usually on a standard setar, when you tilt that thing, because again the jump is too much between thin strings to thick strings, you don't get a good intonation correction. But here you can actually do that and get an okay intonation correction. Again, it's difficult to play this third string right now because this particular setar has grooves on the bridge and on the nut, so it's actually difficult to. But on the different, I can actually add a little nail or something, or cut a groove into it. Here's another tuning. Again, it's a setar that I have changed the drone string on. Here everything is basically an interval of a fourth apart. Out. So here I have 4 sets of strings, basically 4 strings, and they're all now let's see if that's an F sharp, really. That's a B. That's supposed to be a C sharp, but it was a little bit. Okay, that's G sharp. Yeah, I could have tuned it C, G, D, A. I'm a half tone too low. Now this one, I could separate the strings, and same thing on the bridge, so they're equal distance. It's a little bit, I had to cut grooves in my bridge to hold them tight, but actually the idea came from trying to create a new scale that is nothing but whole tone, 3/4 tone, whole tone, 3/4 tone. I had looked into what Rimsky-Korsakov had claimed to have invented, which was a whole tone, half tone interval. It's dividing an octave into whole tone, half tone, whole tone, half tone, and you get triads, you get chords that are all identical, and you get 8 notes per octave. There's also such a thing as a whole tone scale, which is dividing an octave into 6 equal whole tones, and again you get triads that are identical, but you get 6 notes per octave when you divide the octave into exact whole tones. So I thought, what if I came up with a scale that was whole tone, 3/4 tone, whole tone, 3/4 tone, whole tone, 3/4 tone, and you would have 7 notes per octave, and again all your triads. I'm gonna maybe on a different video, I'm gonna show it to you on a keyboard, how you can have this interesting scale. It sounds very Middle Eastern, but also once you start fattening the chords using 5 notes, 6 notes, 7th chords, 9th chords, 11th chords, 13th chords, it actually picks up a very jazzy kind of a sound. It becomes more jazzy, but when you play it monophonically, or when you play just 1 or 2 melodies at the same time, it sounds pretty Middle Eastern. But this idea of a whole tone 3/4, it turns out that it's exactly what the Persian segah scale is all about. That's exactly what segah is. Okay, well, I hope you had a good time and you learned something, or at least I definitely learned something. I came up with this idea 2-3 days ago. I thought I should share it because it sounded pretty exciting to me. And if you have any comments, make sure you leave me a comment on YouTube. Thank you.